All right, welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're going to unpack one of the most incredible, yet somehow totally forgotten histories of the 20th century. We are talking about a lone genius, a literal farm boy born in a log cabin who fundamentally changed how human beings experience the world. Honestly, this is the story of the man who gave us the very screens we're all looking at right now. Okay, let's dive into this. Who invented the television? I mean, if I walked up to 100 people on the street and asked them that, maybe one would actually know the answer, right? We all know Edison invented the light bulb, we know the Wright brothers gave us flight, and Bell gave us the telephone. But the television? Arguably our most influential, world-shaping technology? Almost nobody knows the name of the lone genius behind the whole shebang. Section 1. The Farm Boy's Vision, from potato fields to pixels. So, to really understand this guy's genius, we kind of have to travel back in time. Born in a Utah log cabin, young Philo Farnsworth was this absolute mechanical whiz kid. He spent his childhood rewinding motors, he actually converted his mom's hand-powered washing machine to run on electricity, and he just devoured science magazines. Well, fast forward to the summer of 1921. Philo is just 14 years old, and he's plowing a potato field on his family's farm in Idaho. He's looking at these straight, back-and-forth dirt furrows he's cutting into the earth, and suddenly, bam, it clicks. He realizes that you could capture a moving image by scanning it with electrons line by line, back and forth, the exact same way a field is plowed. It's just a breathtaking visual metaphor that literally birthed the electronic age. And this brilliantly illustrates the leap in his thinking. At the time, other inventors were trying to build mechanical televisions. They were using what's called a nip-cow disc, basically these clunky, spinning mechanical discs with little holes in them to capture light. They were super limited and needed ridiculously bright lights just to get a blurry image. But Farnsworth, he recognized those mechanical limits instantly. He conceptualized a fully electronic television using an image dissector tube. No spinning wheels, no moving parts, just electrons flying at light speed. A total game changer. Section 2. Transmitting the dollar sign. Making the vision real. Fast forward a bit. Farnsworth is in his 20s. He's married to his high school sweetheart, Pem. He's secured an initial $6,000 in backing, and he set up a lab in San Francisco to turn those teenage sketches into actual hardware. And the speed at which he hits these milestones is just mind-blowing. He comes up with the idea in 1921. By 1922, he sketches the complex schematics on multiple blackboards for his high school chemistry teacher, Justin Tolman. Then, on September 7th, 1927, at just 21 years old, his lab successfully transmits the very first all-electronic image, a simple, straight line. By 1928, they're holding a press demonstration. And get this, the image they choose to transmit? A dollar sign. Why? Well, his investors were getting incredibly impatient and kept asking when they were going to see some actual dollars from this invention. Farnsworth had a great sense of humor, so he gave them exactly what they asked for. Section 3. David versus Goliath. The corporate battle for television. Now, you know how it goes. Whenever an underdog creates something world-changing, the giants take notice. Enter the Radio Corporation of America, or RCA, and its super powerful head, David Sarnoff. Sarnoff believed RCA should own television, period. But he had a massive problem. A kid in San Francisco had beaten his entire empire to the punch. What happens next literally reads like a true crime corporate thriller. First, RCA recruits their own brilliant scientist, Vladimir Zworykin, who actually goes and visits Farnsworth's San Francisco lab in 1930 and gets a full tour. Second, Zworykin is so blown away by the image dissector tube that he reportedly has his team copy it back at his own lab. And then, rather than admit defeat, RCA flexes its limitless legal muscle and files a patent interference suit. They aggressively claimed that Zworykin's earlier, non-functioning patents took priority over Farnsworth's fully working system. They were basically trying to bleed the young inventor dry in court. So the crucial point in all this is this number right here, $100,000. In 1931, David Sarnoff himself offers Farnsworth this flat amount to just buy out his patents and have him become an employee of RCA. For a struggling inventor during the Great Depression, that is a wildly tempting lowball offer. But Farnsworth knew exactly what he had. He bravely and maybe a little stubbornly refused. And this plunged him into a grueling, multi-year legal war with literally the biggest radio corporation on Earth. RCA had infinite lawyers, for sure, but Farnsworth had the truth. The entire climax of this legal battle hinges on this one amazing piece of evidence. In 1934, during the patent hearings, Farnsworth has to prove he invented the electronic television before RCA's earliest claims. And who walks into the courtroom? Justin Tolman, his old high school chemistry teacher from Idaho. And what does he have with him? A piece of paper where he had meticulously saved and replicated the exact blackboard sketch young Philo had drawn for him way back in 1922. It was the ultimate smoking gun. Farnsworth actually wins the case. You really can't make this stuff up. Which leads us to this glorious number right here, $1 million. After years of appeals and exhausted legal tricks, RCA finally threw in the towel in September 1939. The great David Sarnoff had to swallow his pride, concede defeat, and agree to a multi-year licensing agreement, paying Farnsworth a massive $1 million. The underdog had officially beaten the corporate titan. Section 4, Beyond the Screen, the Breadth of Genius. Now, let's move to and see how this builds, because you might think, okay, he invented TV, he beat RCA, story over. Not even close. Farnsworth's company eventually gets bought out, and he moves his lab to a basement space in Indiana. Actually, they called it the Cave. And down in that cave, his mind just kept racing. He pivoted into something entirely different, nuclear fusion. Yeah, you heard that right. He designed the Farnsworth fuser. It's essentially a small, elegant device that injects high-temperature ions directly into a reaction chamber. Now, it didn't solve the world's energy crisis. Fusion power is famously tough to crack, but it was incredibly groundbreaking. To put that into perspective, variations of the Farnsworth fuser are still produced commercially today as practical working neutron sources. And just look at this rapid-fire list of his other contributions. I mean, over his career, he worked on defense early warning signals, submarine detection devices, the PPI projector, which is what gave us that iconic circular sweep radar display that became the entire basis for modern air traffic control. He contributed to infrared night vision telescopes, the electron microscope, and even medical tech like baby incubators and gastroscopes. By the end of his life, this farm boy from Utah held an astonishing 300 U.S. and foreign patents. Just incredible. Section 5. A bittersweet legacy. Finding peace with the screen. Now, despite his undeniable brilliance, Farnsworth's later years were, well, they were dark. His ambitious fusion project lost its funding, his independent research company was disbanded, and the IRS literally chained the doors of his lab shut. He struggled with the dependence on alcohol and grew deeply disillusioned with the television itself. He really felt the medium he created was largely wasting human potential on trivial entertainment. But then, this incredibly poignant moment happens. It's July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 mission. Millions of people across the globe are huddled around these glowing boxes in their living rooms, watching in real time as Neil Armstrong takes humanity's first steps onto the surface of the moon. And sitting in his living room in Utah, watching that profoundly historic broadcast, is Philo Farnsworth. Think about that. He is watching humanity achieve the impossible, transmitted back to Earth on the very electronic technology he dreamed up in a potato field almost 50 years earlier. As he sits there watching the astronauts bounce across the lunar surface, Philo turns to his wife, Pem, the woman who had been by his side since those early crazy days in the San Francisco lab, and he says this, "Pem, this has made it all worthwhile. It's just this beautifully profound human moment." Before then, he honestly wasn't sure if his life's work had real value. But in that living room, watching the moon landing, Philo Farnsworth finally found his ultimate redemption. He passed away 2 years later in 1971 at the age of 64. So, what does this all mean for us today? Well, we have to ask ourselves, how many other world-changing visionaries are hidden in the margins of our history? Philo Farnsworth literally gave us the screens that connect our entire modern world, yet his name was almost entirely buried by corporate giants. It really makes you wonder whose forgotten genius is just waiting to be rediscovered next, doesn't it? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.